How is everyone doing? I'm YounesHH. This is Blue Lines TV. Welcome to another Chelsea podcast. Today, I'm joined by Lewis from 100% Chelsea, Younes, and of course, Joe Tweedy as well. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a future away from SARRI, potentially. We're going to be talking about a future away from Roman, depending on whether, the story in regards to Radcliffe and his bid to try and sign, to buy the club is accurate. You guys are messing up today. If the story in regards to him wanting to buy the club is accurate. But yeah, just getting straight into things, starting with you, Younes. Obviously, thanks for coming on, man. Good to see you. But when you saw the reports today, what was going through your minds?
In regards to Jim Radcliffe, I think it's a positive thing. I think it's unfortunate. It's change that I think is beginning to be needed at the club, because I don't believe we can continue with this structure. I think we need a change in structure. I think of getting a new manager. We need to think about changing the way we do things as a club. And personally, I don't see Roman shifting. So when I saw the news today that Jim Radcliffe is possibly going to be heading in to match the 2.5 billion or
Yeah.
£3 billion offer, valuation. Sorry. I saw it as a positive, just as well, hoping that he does see what's needed and he has the right vision, and he doesn't come in as a, let me say, Stan Kroenke sort of guy who's never there, who doesn't care, and it's just all about the money. I know he's a season ticket holder, so that's an advantage, even though he grew up as a Man United fan, but you put business and leisure separate. And
Yeah, of course.
I think it's a positive. I think. Say again?
I think JT was a United fan as well, just building on that.
Oh, was he?
I think so, growing up.
Oh,
Swear. Okay, you learned
I have
something
no
new.
idea. Well, there you are. It doesn't matter who you support, but no, I saw it as a positive. We'll see what happens, but I think it is the change that's needed, I reckon.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay. Well, we're going to touch on that in more detail later on in this stream. But Joe, of course, with the story today, just how accurate is it? Do you think that the press are onto something, or are they just recycling another old story, or is there something else behind the scenes?
I mean, I think there's clear interest, and that there has been probably since the summer, at least with people that I speak to, agents and some people I speak to at the club. There is definitely interest on his side. The message that I'm consistently hearing is that Abramovich has very little intention of actually selling the club, even for some of the figures that have been bandied about today. So I think there's a little bit of a rehashing of some news that we've seen earlier in the season. Ratcliffe has just recently kind of bought the Team Sky cycling team. So I think potentially, kind of building on top of that the next move may be to buy a football club. I kind of agree a bit of Younes with what he was saying. I suppose the real clear positive is that the structure of the club would be drastically altered. This is a guy who has built one of the most successful sort of private companies in sort of British history. It's worth about $85 billion on the market. So I mean, he's obviously incredibly good in terms of business. And that for me, that would be the positive, is that he would come in. It's a fresh set of eyes. It's a fresh way of doing things, of bringing in that business perspective that is kind of lacking a little bit.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be, I would say, as loyal to people who are underperforming. He's known for being a pretty callous guy in terms of sort of how he operates, but it's all about success for him. I think my only potential downside would be is that unless, let's say, he does a sponsorship with his own company, there's not a huge way for him to come in and invest massive amounts of money straight away. So there are a lot of things coming in, and he's worth 3, 4, 5 times what Abramovich is, but without the ability to grow revenues and this whole financial fair play element, he's not going to be able to come in and chuck £600 million.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. Everyone forgets that.
The realism of him coming in, you can't just come in and chuck money. But on the other side, I think we're getting to a point now where just someone coming in and adjusting the structure could also be a massive benefit.
No, I agree. Especially that last point you said as well. A lot of people keep forgetting that there is this thing called financial fair play. We can't just spend any type of money we want. We have to spend within our means. So even getting a new owner doesn't necessarily mean that he can inject a ton of money in the club. So I mean, the rule's there for a reason. But it is quite interesting, and I'm going to maybe maybe change the discussion a tiny bit into a more like hypothetical direction, starting with you, Lewis. If you were Roman, would you sell? And in your opinion, do you think maybe it's the right time now for Abramovich to consider selling and passing ownership on to someone new?
I think in the case of Roman, if he wanted to sell, I think it'd have to be an acceptance from him that he isn't going to be able to make it back into the UK, because the main problem is that he hasn't got that connection back into UK. He can't come in like he usually would and go into the training ground, try and figure out what's going on like he usually did under Jose Mourinho or previous managers. But I think in the case of the club, moving forward, if we did want to move away from Roman Abramovich, it would be to our benefit, mainly because we need to see new ambition from the top down, and we've been calling for that for a long time. And if we have been calling for it, when it comes, we can't start to second guess ourselves. We want this. And if we look at transfer windows as an example, I think after the 14-15 season, that's the last time that we've ever really seen any sort of ambition from us in terms of going out into transfer window immediately, getting our targets and being done early. After that, it's just been us stagnating, taking too long to go after the same players, getting bit part replacements. We got some decent transfers in between, like Kante, but he was based off his release clause. But overall in windows, every year we've seemed to frustrate ourselves more and more. And I think an overall change could be what's needed in order to get that fresh ambition and that uplifting feeling. Because you look at the fan base as an example. The Chelsea fan base is more divided now than it's ever been. And I think a new direction could be something to unite us all again.
Younes, I know you got some thoughts on that, bro.
Mate, it's sad, it's tragic. I did a video earlier on talking about the divide, and it's horrible. I haven't seen it like this ever. You know, not this bad, because we've had difference in opinion in the past, but now we've got two extremes, two big extremes. And it's not even a case of them respecting each other's opinion. We're getting insults, we're getting all sorts happening. It's terrible. And yes, that the fact that I saw a report earlier on saying that the board Roman could make a decision based on the uproar of the fans that we're seeing at the moment in terms of keeping SARRI or not. It tells you just how crazy this actually is and how far this is going. And maybe big change, which I don't see happening in just a change of a manager. I do think it needs to come from above. Could be the solution to this divide that we have in the fan base at the moment. So, yeah, it's sad. It's tragic to see what's happening in our fan base. For, you know, we all have one common cause, which is the badge that we all support, and that doesn't seem to be the number one priority within the fan base at the moment. So. Yeah, that needs to stop.
Maybe now is a good time to speak about, you know, the fan base right now. I think it segues in quite nicely. I don't know. I've been trying to understand, you know, what's been the issue recently. Now, there's always been a lot of debate. Let's be serious. But things have been slightly more toxic, and in a way, it's like the fan base is becoming like a reflection of the world. You know, all these far right opinions, all these far left opinions.
That's true.
Everyone's just fighting and arguing their black and white opinions. And one thing I've been trying to be consistent with and stress the entire time is our situation is a very grey matter. A lot of people have a lot of very simplistic solutions to this issue right now, as if it's going to be the sole reason that's holding us back. And you have to do this one thing, and then you'll be fine from now on. It's not really the solution. It's not working like that. And I'm just trying to understand why the discourse is becoming worse. It's quite a hard one, to be fair. Is it just, you know, a reflection of modern life? And it was always going to end up like this, you know? I mean, let's be serious. Twitter as a platform, or social media in general as a platform, has become a lot more, you know, tribalistic in that nature. So maybe it was like a matter of time. And SARRI is the guy that's come here at the wrong time.
I mean, sorry, mate. We social media, all of that, you're right, 100%. What's baffling is under the last couple of managers that we've had, or, you know, even then when social media was existent like it is today, we didn't have this divide. You look at from Benitez, everyone really didn't want him at the club. But at the end, appreciated the job that he'd done. Everyone wanted Mourinho. We got Mourinho. We didn't want him to go. He got sacked. Everyone was on the same page. Conte, pretty much the same thing. But now it's just, again, there's just such a huge divide in regards to Sarri, and it's crazy where it's come from and how it's stemmed. Look at other clubs. They all have opinions on their managers and their players and the way they run, but it's not as toxic as this. It's always up.
I think it's a case that people just aren't willing to wait. That's what I think is. That's a case of I think it's a case of because we've been so successful over the last 12 years, and as much as we've been saying that we need to go through a transitional season, I don't think people are as patient as they should be, in my opinion. I think it's a case of some fans are saying that other fans are too focused on the success and they're not asked about the long-term development of the club. But in my opinion, I think half of them are the same fans also handing in their tickets and not going to the last couple of games of the season because they don't like the way the club's being run. It's a case that some of these fans, they hate, in my opinion.
But you know what, though? I mean, of course, maybe, let's be serious with Chelsea fans. We only care about what's happening with our club. But when you look at, like, you know, the football spectrum in whole, we know that incident that happened with the West Ham fans. I think, you know, when a lot of them left really early, and of course they missed the comeback there from West Ham in the end. And I was speaking to my dad earlier today, and I was just like, obviously, you know, what's happening? Because let's be serious, it's not as if there's like a massive influx of like younger fans in the stadium because it's expensive, and you don't get many young fans in the stadium. A lot of them are guys my dad's age, and I was just like to him, what's happening? These guys were supporting the club and we had nothing when we were in like Division 2. Didn't have anywhere near the quality of player we have. When did this entitlement factor come into play? That's what, and he didn't really have an answer for it. He said that he was a bit surprised himself. You know, he said back in his day when it came to supporting the club, you know, it was a lot. There wasn't as much pressure. You know, results didn't matter as much. Of course, it's more about wanting to see your team play well. He was saying, I think now with like, you know, the influx of so much money in the game now, there's a lot of financial incentive now for teams, and I think that with that motivation, this is why, you know, people are doing anything they can to, you know, succeed. But I don't know. Do you think it's just like a sad indictment of how football is right now, or do you think maybe? I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't have the answers.
I think I'd say look in the case of other fan bases, like sort of just moved on into a new era of Unai Emery, and they haven't got nearly the same amount of problems. I get it's two completely different football clubs, but they seem to be a lot more patient about it than we are.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, sorry. I thought you were going to elaborate more then.
Oh,
and then I thought you lost connection.
That's the point I was trying to make. It's just a case of patience.
Yeah. No, you're right, bro. But yeah, Joe. Obviously, I know you definitely got some thoughts and opinions on this. I don't know, like, you know, the timeline has been kind of like depressing lately. You know, it really has been a lot of negativity, and the thing that annoys me the most is that I feel like a lot of people's opinions they've formed have been based on a lot of ignorance. Now, I'm not going to touch on the guy too much, but obviously I think we all saw a certain Mr. CFC Fan TV on a certain, you know, appearance of True Geordie. And let's say he didn't really give the best account of himself. But he really reflects a lot of people in the fan base that have those opinions, I think, the exact same way. It's not as if he's some isolated incident and he's just like some one-off guy. I don't understand. What's your thoughts and opinions as to why they're so entitled?
So, I mean, generally with Chelsea, I think that let's call it this moment has been happening for a very long time. I think it's been building maybe since he won the Champions League. There's been a steady decline in sort of the quality of players available in the squad, and you've sort of had titles that are kind of papered over the cracks in some instances. When we've won titles, we've never kind of really bought to reinforce the squad, and particularly the Conte title, you know, there were so many caveats to that particular win, you know, playing once a week, no one really adjusting to the back formation for about 20, you know, pretty much half a season unchallenged. I think we've had kind of this sort of false kind of sense of where the squad is, that it's this sort of top tier European squad, when the reality has been, I think it's been degrading for some while. You kind of then couple that with what I think structurally and sort of in the governance of the club has just been a general downturn, really. I would say probably since he won the Champions League. I think we've spent over £900 million on players, and you look at the current squad and you have to think, where is that investment? Most of it is out on loan, which is also crazy. So it feels like there's been this kind of pressure building up behind the scenes, almost like a dam, with this constantly getting decisions incorrect. And yes, there have been some nice moments to kind of paper over the cracks, but in the background, people who really have been paying attention have been saying that something like this is happening for a while. And I think what's happened with Sarri is that because he's different, he's not a typical Chelsea manager in a Conte, Mourinho, even sort of an Ancelotti mold in how they sort of manage players and how they kind of manage things.
And because he hasn't won anything as well.
Yeah, I think that comes into it. But I just think he's become the focal point of people's frustrations with basically the general decline of the club. Because, people who don't like things to be different, they don't like the fact that we've got someone who tries to pass the ball in midfield instead of someone who tries to tackle, some very, very basic things. I think it's just culminated in certain elements of the fan base being incredibly frustrated with the direction of the club. But it's more of an explosion than kind of a general decline, because this has been happening for probably the past 5 years. We've become steadily worse. I'm not a huge believer in sort of the kind of titles necessarily reflecting that we're the best team domestically. But if you follow things like the Euro Club Index, which kind of shows you where you rank in Europe, we've kind of gone from a top 4, top 5 team to sort of 12th, 13th, 14th, in Europe at the moment. And that's kind of more what I'm looking at is the general decline of the squad. And I just think it's a combination of things, really, Nina. It's just an explosion of anger from fans. That they see the club again struggling to compete for the title. They've tried to do something different. It hasn't necessarily worked out. Goes against a lot of their principles in terms of what they would prefer the club to be as well. So it's just an explosion of anger, really. And I think you're right in terms of what you're saying. It kind of reflects sort of societal trends as well. There's sort of very polar opposites. There's kind of no space for grey opinions these days. It has to be black or white. It's just kind of binary perspective on football. It's either shit or it's good.
Yeah.
And there's no real room to kind of debate the sort of middle ground, which is kind of what you need to in this point in time. But for me, it's been happening for a while. I think that it's just a trend, and Sarri's got the brunt of it.
Yeah. No, I think you summed it up very well, to be fair. But I think let's move on the conversation back to the Ratcliffe news now. Joe, I think I'll start with you again. Do you think that maybe Roman should consider selling? Would you like to see him remain? Do you think he's the right guy for the future?
See, I'd hate to get rid of someone who I always think back to the Champions League final and the guy in tears. When we're sort of getting the trophy and the sort of affection and attachment that he had to the club. I'm always concerned with just the people that he surrounds himself with to run the club. We've changed managers and we get rid of players and stuff like that, but the people running the club have been consistent. And you have to say that probably, from the football board level, that's been the biggest issue that we've had probably for the past 5 years. It's just the lack of knowledge, the lack of consistency. Fantastic at running the business side of things. That's all well and good, but when it starts to affect the footballing side and you keep making wrong decisions, something has to be done there. So. If I'm Abramovich, it all comes down to the visa situation. If you can't come into the country, and the sort of relationships between Russia and the UK and all this sort of social political stuff carries on, you'd have to question what's the point.
Yeah.
If you've got a guy willing to give you, double your investment in the club, in terms of what you put into it, then you'd have to consider it. But I think for him, it's a legacy thing. I've always felt like he wanted to hand it over to his son eventually for him to sort of take on, and that's sort of Abramovich legacy. So. It's a question of ego, I think. If he thinks he can get his visa and if he thinks he can carry on, I think he will. But, if pressure dictates it, if Russia dictates it or the UK dictates it, then, I could see him selling. But it's really, really tricky to call. All the noise I've heard is that he won't sell. But obviously everything has a price.
Interesting. I don't know. For me, I'm going to keep it really hypothetical and brief, but I don't know. Everyone knows my thoughts and opinions. When it comes to Roman, I just don't like the boards he's really put in charge. And I understand that there's sort of a lot of factors happening outside of football right now that he has to deal with, but I just don't like the idea that he can just just pass it on to the people he knows and friends. I don't understand. I think that our boards haven't really done anything for us in the footballing sense. They haven't helped any manager out really, and I've been very critical of all of them. you know. But one thing we can all agree on is that they haven't really been backed or supported, and I think that, you know, not really wanting a football man in the top two, I think is quite telling. I have a little theory. We haven't really heard about Michael Ballack for a while, but we've seen what he's been talking about and writing about on social media and on the news. And of course, he isn't someone that's going to be a puppet man and is going to say yes, whatever the boards are going to say. You know, he wants to be involved. He wants to build something with the club, not just look after the loan army. So this is why I'm not too confident that, you know, Ballack's going to be a thing in the future. But, you know, regardless of that, I'm just frustrated with this board. I think that they're the main reason why we haven't got any sustainability or long-term success. I think this news surrounding SARRI as well, potentially his job on the line, I think it's quite out of touch right now. I'm just thinking, and quite arrogant. Like, do they think they're going to find someone better? Now, again, I've said, you know, if SARRI goes, the only possible appointment has to be someone that understands the club and has come from within the setup. But let's be serious. We're not going to make it a smart decision like that. We're not, because we've got illusions of grandeur still at the club. They think we're much bigger and better than we are. We're not. I mean, look at the squads. Most teams in the league have better players than us individually. United's, most of their attacking players are much better than us. Most of their midfielders are better than us. You know what? It goes on. Look at teams like Man City, Liverpool now come up from nowhere. I mean, even Spurs. We're at an Arsenal level right now. And I think that I don't have that faith and confidence that this boards are going to be the guys to get us out of this rut and get us this long-term sustainable success we need. And I think sorry.
I think you're spot on. Honestly, I think there's a lot of attention in regards to whether SARRI is the man, whether, you know, you're SARRI in or SARRI out and all of that. However, I think if there's one thing we can all agree on as a fan base is the big fish, the big elephant in the room. The problem is the board. It always has been. It always has. It always will be, as far as I'm concerned with this bunch. And if Roman doesn't see that's the problem, that's where I question his ownership.
Exactly.
And because we can't keep going on like this. We can't. You know, it's been last 5 or 6 years we've gone on this trend, this downward trend, and now we've hit a level where we're starting to realize just how far down we're going.
Yeah.
And any manager that comes into the club is going to suffer the same consequences. You could bring, you could bring Brian Clough, you know, to come and manage, you know, if he was still around, and he wouldn't get to sort it out. So the common denominator is the problem at board level, and if that doesn't change, nothing below it will. So if there's one thing we can all agree on, and, you know, for the sake of the club and for the sake of what we all care about, the one thing that needs to change before anything is the board. And if Roman can't see that, then we need to question his ownership as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Lewis, man.
With me, I feel like, obviously, I completely agree with everything you said. The board is the main problem. But with us, our issue is that there's so many other issues that are on top of that.
Yeah.
Another one is these players, and the problem with them is they'll turn up when they want. The thing with Chelsea this season that I've noticed is it's very hard to predict what kind of Chelsea is going to show up.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you look at the Spurs game after the cup final. Took one look at the lineup, and practically everyone going into that game wasn't confident. What happened? We went out straight from the start. We took the game to Spurs. We beat them 2-0. And then you look at other games like our terrible away record this entire year, where we've only won one game away to Fulham. Sometimes it feels like if we don't take the lead sooner or later, if we just continue to miss chances like we always do, the players just seem to give up, or they just don't seem to understand what to do to get out of this situation. They fall back into their same deficiencies that they always have, and that's where we continue to falter. So I think the players are to fault as well. I think the board are just as much as to blame, if not more. I think Abramovich takes some of the blame just for allowing it to happen. Not only the thing I hate about the way SARRI's been treated is the fans have just gone for him in terms of chanting "fuck SARRI" ball, chanting getting sacked in the morning, but they haven't said anything about the players. They haven't said anything about the board. Not saying they deserve any of that abuse, because let's be real, no one deserves abuse. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, if you're going to go after one of them, at least be consistent and go after everybody else.
Be consistent with the energy, of course. And this is what frustrates me a lot, because sometimes I feel it's like being ignorant on purpose. Some of the things you're moaning about, I mean, you were moaning about the exact same things the past few years. That's what I don't understand. I know that people are frustrated with SARRI when it comes to youth. Of course I am. Everyone knows I'm one of the biggest advocates for youth football. But if we're being a bit objective, we have to admit that SARRI's used way more young players than Mourinho or Conte have. And it's just like, you know, again, managers like Mourinho and Conte had young players, you know, right in a crucial period where, you know, they needed some game time and, you know, some faith in the manager that you're good enough and, you know, you can do something here. Really SARRI's the first manager to do that with a young player at Chelsea so far, especially with our current crop of, like, you know, great young players. That's in my opinion. People can disagree, that's fine. But I think that you should get a bit more credit in that sense. Now, yeah, of course, I understand Hudson-Odoi should be playing on merit. He should be starting now. I'm hoping after the international period, SARRI will finally wake up, smell the coffee and do that. But at the same time, can he really blame the guy in that sense? I mean, he's been given the impossible job right now. You know, he has to guarantee that we're going to get Champions League football. Currently, it's looking like quite a stretch right now. And it's like, no wonder he's not going to be focusing on the future when he has to think about the next day. Because that's, I mean, his job is on the line. You know what I mean? So I still think even under pressure, he's been making some decent decisions. Of course, I think things will get better once Ruben's fully fit and if he starts using Hudson-Odoi more. But at the same time, a part of me is thinking, well, if these two players come, does that still mean that Higuain's going to finish his chances? You know, does that still mean that maybe, you know, like Luiz, Rudiger, Aspie or one of our defenders doesn't make an individual mistake? You know what I mean? So there's still a lot of ifs and buts in the team, even if all of that does happen. But I do feel like, you know, SARRI needs a bit of faith shown right now. The club haven't come out once at all to say anything. Maybe they've been putting him under pressure even more, and I just don't understand what they expect from him, really. Oh, sorry. You know, I need to start directing it to people. I'm really bad. Like, I need to get better at this. But Joe, I wanted to hear your thoughts and opinions on that. Hello?
Yeah, no.
Oh, you're here. Oh, cool.
Yeah. I mean, he's been put in an incredibly difficult situation from the beginning. I mean, you've been tasked with changing the entire playing style of a team that's played the same way for 6 seasons with players who, you know, despite his best intentions, will never be able to play quick, slick passing football. I mean, you know, we've had discussions before. Yeah. I'm not SARRI's greatest fan in terms of what he's done this season. I think he has had opportunities to play other players, and when we look at, you know, players who make mistakes regularly, you know, he has the opportunity to not play Rudiger, to not play Luiz, to not play Alonso, to not play Azpilicueta, you know, Kovacic, Bach. I mean, there are alternatives in the squad that he doesn't necessarily want to use. So I think he's been a bit dogmatic in his approach at times, but still, you know, it's a question of, for me, the level of investment that was needed in the summer to kickstart this was not present. Sure, you know, we spent an absolute ton on a key piece for him in Jorginho and the goalkeeper who can play a style of football, but, you know, not having a centre forward, I think, is the biggest issue here. We can talk about the rest of the pitch, every single position, but when you're implementing a new style, if you've got a top striker, that can really paper over the cracks, you know, for the season, because, you know, that chance conversion that you see that we have, which is so, you know, terrible at the moment. Yeah. If you score an early goal against Everton, that game's pretty much done and dusted. You know, but we probably should have scored in the first half. So I think sometimes, looking back to the summer, you know, if you're getting rid of Morata, you know, you're getting rid of Batshuayi on loan, there should have been a massive push to go and get a top striker, because we've seen it with Tottenham. Pochettino's rise is pretty much based off the back of Harry Kane turning into like Alan Shearer. You know, Sergio Aguero let Man City kind of feel the way into the Premier League under Guardiola, because Aguero will just pop up with goals. I think at Chelsea, because we don't have a massive goal scoring threat in midfield, Hazard's not an elite goal scorer, Pedro Willian are very spotty. You know, we don't have this Diego Costa, Drogba, or this elite centre forward who's really been able to paper over the cracks. So I think what we're just seeing is just the lack of investment in the right areas, because you know, we just don't score enough goals. And I think that's really what it comes down to. If you want to give him an extended period of time, at the club, then they should have really gone out and got a proper striker in January.
Exactly.
Had options.
Yeah.
You know, Piatek went to Milan. He seems to be banging goals every single week. You know, we've got a guy in on loan who, you know, I mean, he's not the answer for me. He's not going to be an answer in the future. It just seems like he's been given this task with one hand tied behind his back, and that's the sympathy that I have for him, is that, you know, trying to change his playing style without a top goal scorer, without probably another 3 or 4 players that he needed, was always going to be difficult. And then I think, you know, maybe his approach as well, you question it, but it's not just him. I think that's the point I'm making. Is I'm not a huge fan of him, but it's not just him, and you know that's really the main thing that people need to understand.
Yeah, no. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I don't know, this Sarri thing. I look at, you know, how Klopp started, how Pep started. They all went through the same thing, you know. But the only difference that Pep and Klopp had was boards that supported them and believed in their vision. I think that's all Sarri needs. And, you know, of course, you're under a lot of pressure when you're managing a club like us. And when you don't have the board supporting you either, it is going to affect your decision making, I personally feel. You know, I mean, let's say, you know, Klopp had to, you know, win something in his first season, trying to implement, you know, his game style into the team. Do you really think he's going to be looking at guys like, you know, youth players or Trevor Arnold, etc., etc.? No, I mean, not in his first season. Now these guys are playing now because he's settled down a bit. He's analysed the team. He knows their strengths and weaknesses. But again, he went through a lot of the things that Sarri did. You know, his lineups were a bit stubborn. Guys like Marino playing all the time when he was doing nothing and was quite useless. There were a few similarities, but he knew what areas need to be addressed. And let's be serious, I think Sarri knows that. This is why he's, you know, he wants players to come in the transfer window, and this is why he really wanted players to come in January as well. So I think he understood pretty quickly, oh shit, I need to strengthen this team. But this is what really annoys me. I don't understand, you know, how, you know, the board and the club can see how teams like Liverpool, for example, have really progressed just because of they've had a structure and plan in regards to how they want to be run. Look how they dismantled Bayern Munich. It was a world-class performance. To do that at Bayern's home as well. You know, Liverpool have become a serious team now, not just a good team, a serious team. And I'm just thinking, they didn't get to that stage in one season. There was a process. The manager at the time, he had the money was invested in his vision as well. Seeing a top team, and I'm going to be talking about this point tomorrow. But I'm going to be talking a lot about specialisation in football in regards to how, you know, teams set up their squads and, you know, to get the very best out of them. We saw Sarri's Napoli specialised, to, you know, all the players on the pitch specialised to playing a style of football. And look at the things they were doing. They were so close to being the Scudetto. If they had a better squad, I think they would have done it. But I mean, our squad isn't tailor-made for any style of football. So whoever comes in is 1000% struggling anyway.
One thing that and this is actually a question to everyone here, and this is the thing that when I constantly evaluate Sarri, this is kind of the context I put it in, is that this is a guy who I think professes to be a coach. You know, he's regularly, I wouldn't say regularly claimed. I think that there has been a trajectory in his career of improving players. And I always look at Koulibaly at Napoli because I think when Sarri turned up, though, you know, for me, he's not a great player, but he's arguably one of the sought after centre backs in Europe now. Now, the thing at Chelsea is, I think the more he's had the team, that I think we've progressively got worse as the season has gone on. And that for me, that's the concern. When I hear people talk about the process and comparison to Klopp and Guardiola, is I don't see, and this is from someone, I've got a coaching background, I've got, you know, scouting qualifications, etc. I don't see the transition in the team in going in the right direction. And that's the question I ask people is are we genuinely heading in a direction? And it's also the fact that he's trying to coach Pedro and Willian to play his style of football, not necessarily Hudson-Odoi and Loftus-Cheek. So is he also kind of, you know, taking a bit of a short term?
Yeah, but even on that point you made then, does he not need the board to come out to support him, saying, you know what, you're going to be here for next season, so don't worry? This is what I mean. He's under pressure to have, you know, he needs to secure Champions League football, and most managers are going to turn towards experienced players to help them out. But maybe hypothetically, if he was given that confidence that he's going to be here next season, I'm sure that he would be looking towards a lot of the other younger players, knowing that it doesn't really matter what happens this season. I'm not under pressure. Now, you're making that point about, obviously, you know, him not really developing anyone. And obviously, when he was at Napoli, developing guys like Koulibaly. But, I mean, the Napoli squad was pretty young, you know. you can't really develop guys like Alonso and Willian or Pedro anymore. I mean, they're past their sell-by date and they're on the decline. We can all see it. They're not getting any better whatsoever. And, you know, maybe Sarri overestimated the strength of this team at the start. But this is what I mean. I feel like any time we make a criticism about Sarri, we can make criticisms about so many other people on top of that. And this is what I mean. You know, when the fan base distill the conversation to making everything so binary and making everything black and white, you're doing yourself an injustice, because you're not painting the full picture of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but it comes back to the point, particularly with, you know, I don't think that we have the best players available in the squad, but they're getting picked every week by Sarri. You know, Marcos Alonso, he publicly came out, about three weeks ago, spoke about his mentality, took him out of the team. I felt Palmieri did okay. Yeah. I felt he played well. But then Alonso's back in the team in the Europa League game, he plays 90 minutes and comes back against Everton and has one of the worst performances.
This season. My God.
Yeah. Can't keep giving him... You know, I agree that, you know, the squad's not great, but Sarri keeps picking players that make mistakes. And there are alternatives to some of these players. There are at least 4 that can be changed regularly. Yeah. That's almost half of the team that will get picked kind of regardless. And that's, you know, that's the criticism. You know, if you're not happy with your centre-backs, then play Christensen. You can play, you know, you can play Palmieri. Okay, I don't think Zappacosta is fantastic, but give Azpilicueta a rest, or put Azpilicueta at left-back. You know, play Ruben, play Hudson-Odoi. You know, it's not rocket science in terms of some of these players who are not playing well. You know, the alternatives are that much worse, or, you know, whatever. He has options. He just doesn't seem to want to take them.
I mean, I think with Ruben, though, it's an injury thing. I think with
him, I agree on that.
Yeah, exactly. So and let's be serious. Anytime I hear that argument, the 2 main players that can actually make a difference for us, because, you know, we all know the main issue is we don't score goals. Those 2 players are Ruben and Hudson-Odoi. Christensen, he'll improve the team. He's better, but like in the grand scheme of things, like, you know, he's not helping the team out as much compared to a forward player. You know what I mean? But it's quite understandable. You know, Ruben being out for a while, and I guess with Hudson-Odoi, maybe that's the only criticism I really have for Sarri. Well, not the only one, but one of the criticisms I have for Sarri, my main one, is his use of Hudson-Odoi. I think it's quite cliched, you know, like I don't think Hudson-Odoi is just any 18-year-olds. I'm hoping now that he's going to wake up a lot once that, you know, the entire nation starts talking about him. Hopefully, God willing, he does get some minutes for England as well. That's really going to have to make Sarri make a brave decision on him. I'm thinking after he saw that performance against Everton, this is the last chance I'm giving him now. If he still doesn't make the right attacking changes in the team, then you're asking for it. I've said this since the start of the season. Sarri, embrace the attacking qualities of the team. I get why he makes some of these dead decisions. You know, he's thinking about off the ball defending, because let's be serious, we're shit defending against the transition. Teams have been countering us for fun. It's been laughable seeing Aspie and Alonso this season out wides. But even then, you know, oh my God, I lost my train of thought then. I just got distracted for a second.
Yeah, that happens to me.
You could say the transition stuff structural. You know, that it's the fact that he puts 8 people ahead of the ball instead of like 5 like most teams. You've got both fullbacks ahead of the ball.
Of course.
It's only Jorginho, Luiz and Rudiger. You know, there are things that he can change and tweak tactically as well as players. You know, I don't think he's adjusted well enough over the season for me to be super excited about him taking the club forward. That's my position. You know, I was very excited when he came here. I wanted to see this realisation of a different style of football. He needed a lot more money, but I haven't seen enough from him this season to really be like super behind him as a fan. Not just his use of young players. Yeah. That's one of my things is I want academy players playing, but there are some tactical things as well which I'm not super keen about. But he can fix. He just doesn't appear to want to.
Fair enough, but
another thing as well. The fact, the fact that we started the season really well, and we saw the team, certain players, certain individuals starting to pick up what their role, you know, what was required in their role. You started to see really fluent football, really fluent passes, fullbacks understanding what they had to do. All of a sudden, since mid-December, we've just gone into freefall, and that's not normal. It's not normal. Now we're starting to see flaws in terms of the fullbacks, starting to see flaws in terms of transition, starting to see flaws in terms of our midfield, certain players not playing. That wasn't the case at the start. In terms of City, Liverpool, other teams who have just developed, we've seen uphill changes, you know, so they're adapting, they're not quite there, but they're getting better. So maybe it's slowly, but they're getting better. Yeah. With us, it's just the opposite. And that's just, that is a concern. In terms of Joe's point, that is a concern. Is that going to continue into next season? Are the board going to back it? The fact that we've got a transfer ban doesn't help. It's worrying. But it's not quite clear why has it changed? Why since December have we gone on this downward spiral? It's just it's odd.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that, you know, people didn't assess the squad properly at the start before the season started. But Lewis, I wanted to ask you, man, obviously about this whole situation. If we had better players in key positions, do you feel like maybe we'd be doing much better this season? Or do you feel like maybe it wouldn't make a difference because the system isn't helping out the players as much?
I think building on that, the main problem was that we didn't bring SARRI in earlier. I've been saying mainly through the whole summer, because we were linked with SARRI from about March. The rumours were getting stronger and stronger ever since the FA Cup final. But for months and months, we didn't sort anything to the point where Conte came back for training and then was sacked 2 days later. SARRI had 6 weeks left before the season started, 5 days with his full first-team squad because of the World Cup and holidays. And then he was asked to change the entire philosophy of this club with about 3 or 4 transfers and a loan deal. It weren't going to work. It really wasn't. I feel like he was just doomed from the start. That's why, as much as I can understand where some fans are in terms of being SARRI out, because I get some of the reasoning, I completely understand that. But my issue is, it was going to fail this season. Like, it was obvious from the start, so we should have been more ready for this and more understanding of it.
Yeah, of course. But Lewis, let me ask you, what do you think are some of, if there are any, like some of the positives from this season? Do you think there are many? You don't think there are too many? Like, what's your thoughts?
I think one is that Kante's improved a lot more going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Like, this season because of, I think it's meant to be transition, and also because of the poor transfers and how poor the summer has been going into it. There isn't a lot of positives to think about, and a lot is just clutching at straws. But 3, I'd say, N'Golo Kante, Ruben Loftus-Cheek now solidifying himself as a main player for Chelsea, and Hudson-Odoi now starting to get more of those minutes.
I think they're good points you touched on. Younes, do you feel there are many positives this season, or do you think the negatives outweigh them?
I think the negatives outweigh the positives.
And what's those negatives for you?
It's hard in terms of identifying each one, because I think there's a few. In terms of, it's the same problems that always arise. The manager not getting exactly what's required for their system to be fulfilled. Certain players not being able to contribute to the system and its role, like Alonso and all sorts. We know who. The fan base. The divide, the structure of the board, the club, it all contributes to why we're seeing what we're seeing on the pitch. The positives, I think, are exactly the ones that Lewis outlined. Those 3 are, without question, you know, really, really, really good positives. But the negatives are why we are where we are today. And I think that ultimately shows, you know, going forward, what needs to change.
And of course, Joe, I need to come to you. I'm assuming I'm going to know what your answer is going to be, but do you think the negatives outweigh the positives this season?
No, I mean, there are some positives to me. I think Hudson-Odoi's emergence in the Europa League has been hugely positive. You know, I'm super proud that he's been called up to the England squad. You know, this is a kid that, again, he's been at Chelsea since he was a baby. You know, this is one of the Chelsea kids that's come through. I think Loftus-Cheek, you know, I've had this argument with people since he was 17, and when I first wrote an article on him a couple of years ago about how he could be a really dominant player for Chelsea, and the amount of stick I've had for that over the years, you know, and him sort of emerging this year as a really kind of top-class player at Chelsea has been huge. I think Andreas Christensen, I think his confidence is back. I think he had that knocked out of him under SARRI. You know, all right, he's not playing in the Premier League, which I would like him to, but I think the past couple of games he's played, particularly in the Europa League, he's looked particularly good. And what else is there I would say is positive? I mean, I'm a 4-3-3 guy, so I mean the return to the shape, maybe I would play the system differently, is slightly different. But yeah, I mean, I think that the negatives, a lot of them are focused on Sarri. You know, as someone who writes a lot about the club structure, I think that is the biggest concern. And maybe a positive is that that's now being highlighted by, I don't want to call them everyday fans, but people are now starting to realise that actually it's the way the clubs run, the structure, the lack of direction, the lack of strategy that's kind of underpinning so many of these issues. And once you look past that kind of facade of, oh, it's Sarri, if you actually look at the club structure, I think the fact that there's now a spotlight on is positive in a weird way. That would be the positives I have.
Okay. But I'm actually curious. Of course, you were touching on that you would possibly make a few tweaks in the system if you could. Obviously, keep it very brief. But what would those tweaks be? What's like one of the underlying issues you see that you're like, sorry, come on now, wake up?
For next season or currently?
Oh, currently. That's like from what you've observed this season.
I mean, I think the key thing for me is, it's mostly in transition, and you know, and this is mostly in the defensive phase. I think, I'm not the world's biggest Tony Rudiger fan, but defenders need midfielders to cover up their mistakes often. You know, they need to have that sort of screen, and I think there were so many times this season where teams play 2 passes and they're immediately like 3 or 4 and 2 at the back. And structurally, you know, we have this massive imbalance. If Alonso's really far forward, then Azpilicueta should almost be tucked in as a third centre. But the fact that he's so far forward, I think that there was a clip of or a steal of the Everton game where Jorginho had the ball about 10 metres outside the area, and there was like eight Chelsea shirts ahead of him. And while that's fantastic, if you're confident you're going to sort of keep possession, we don't have the players who are going to be able to 100% not lose the ball. As soon as we lost the ball, Everton broke, and that for me, if there's one tweak to make, it's a defensive structure. You don't have to have 7 men ahead of the ball at all times to be an attacking team. You can attack with 5 players. You can attack with 6 players. It's just this overloading concept which he plays all the time.
But this is
about December. That's the thing that teams figured out, is that we commit so many men forward, and they know if they nick the ball, then they can counter-attack really, really quickly. That's one of the things that hasn't really moved on from there.
Yeah,
good
exactly.
Point.
No, that is a very good point. But I still think this is where there's a lot more context in regards to things as well.
Oh yeah, there's tons.
Yeah. Pardon?
I said there's tons of context.
Yeah, exactly. Like and let me ask all you guys. I'm gonna get your general thoughts and opinions. Do you feel as if maybe the players should be taking more responsibility for the failures? Because in my opinion, this is the season where I've noticed the most individual mistakes leading to goals. I don't think I've really seen a season like that for a while, where we're normally costing ourselves due to individual mistakes. Yeah, Lewis, it's starting with you, man.
I think I agree with you, but not just in terms of defensively. I think offensively as well, we set ourselves up to fail in that we've improved a lot in terms of creating chances, but we never take them. The finishing has been poor from Higuain. We have a lot of block shots, which can be based on us either taking too long on the ball or just being predictable. Like, for example, Pedro always likes to get the ball, drive at the fullback, and cut inside. But then he'll always go for that same. He'll always go for that same cut inside shot, which is just going to get blocked every single time because he never keeps his head up. Look at Eden Hazard, who's the same. He holds onto the ball for too long, so whenever he goes to shot, it's blocked. Ross Barkley is either aiming for shed up or an opposition player. You've got Higuain, who's missed a lot of chances. This has been our main issue. Defensive issues are one thing, but going forward, if you don't take the chances, then that's errors in itself.
Yeah, exactly. Younes, man.
Sorry, what was the question?
Of course. No, it's cool. Obviously, oh shit! Now you're making me forget what the question is now. Hey, I might need some help on this, but no, just I'll just oh my God, I am distracted today. I really am. Hey, Lewis, man, I have to re-elaborate on that point again, just to remind us again.
I think you're asking about defensive mistakes.
And... of course, the individual errors. Do you feel as if maybe the players should be taking more responsibility?
100%. 100%, 100%. As you said, we've seen a lot of individual mistakes, and it's always the same mistakes. You always see the same errors from the same players in the same, near enough in the same positions of the pitch, and it's really concerning because every time we go on to lose a game, for example, we get the same characters that come out and say the same words. Or they come on social media and they type in the same things, and then they go on to the pitch next game and make the same mistakes. So yeah, 100%. It needs to be a little more action and less word in terms of the players, and really identifying what their mistakes are and to make sure they don't again. Yeah. Or at least don't go out to take the risk where you might commit that same error. So yeah, players need to without a doubt take more responsibility. Yeah,
no, I agree. I mean, the amount of times a lot of criticism about the system, I feel, has been down to the lack of execution from the players. I mean, look how awful Ross and Cover have been as number 8s. It's a shame that we haven't been able to rely on Ruben as much. But I mean, Barkley, for example, we haven't seen any improvement in him whatsoever. Maybe he moves the ball slightly faster when he's passing out wides, but that's about it. You're not getting anything from him. And one point I was making in my match review was that we can't really execute this style of football when 50% of the players when 50% of the outfield players affect the other 50%. You can't have guys like Hazard, Kante, Higuain, Luiz, Rudiger's, etc., playing alongside Barkley, Aspie, Alonso, William, Pedro. It's not getting the best out of them, and it's just like, normally I watch games twice, I normally have to, so I can remember things. And I think when I watch games a second time, that's when I really see things that happen. I really see a lot of the details on the pitch I wasn't noticing the first time I watched it. And the amount of times I see good bits of play ruined by some individuals in the team every single time. It's incredible. And it's like, of course, I agree with you, Joe. Sarri should be making the brave call. He should be using certain personnel in the first team right now. It's one thing we've all been frustrated with for a long time. It needs to happen. Hopefully after the international break, he's going to wake up now and realise, listen, I keep persisting with these guys. I can't trust you anymore. You can give me the best first half of the season and still cost me the game. Nah, a lot of you guys can't be in it. But I look at the potential, and this is what I mean. For me, Sarri's a long-term guy. I look at the potential that this guy can bring. Look at the potential of the football we've been playing. Some of the stuff that we beat opposition presses, from deep areas, like against Liverpool and Man City and Arsenal. These are serious teams that are closing you down and winning the ball. We were doing it effortlessly at times. And we create those transitions. But you'd be surprised the amount of times we break down every single attack due to individuals making errors. And I've seen it from useless crosses out wide from like Alonso and Aspie. How is that helping the strikers get chances on goal? That's not happening. What about the people that make the late man runs? Have you realised that our fullbacks only produce one style of cross? That's all. No, two styles. An overhit one or an underhit one. That's all they're doing every single time. Exactly. Think of all the times we've ruined attacking opportunities for ourselves due to the lack of ability from these guys. And look at guys like Barkley and Cover, who aren't making runs, who aren't running in behind, stretching the play or doing anything, that are hiding out beside Aspie and Alonso. You know what I mean? Adding nothing at all, congesting the pitch even further. Sarri doesn't want these guys to do that, but because of the limit of these guys, that's the best they can do. Now, of course, every now and then, we see them play the style, but this is the difference between, top players and good players is consistency. How well can you consistently play and do things? And we're seeing now with most of the people in the squad, not even a handful. There's quite a lot of players here that are average. They can't do it. And just cast your minds back to the start of the summer when Hazard was talking about wanting investment in the team. Do you think that other guys like Kante aren't saying things or Luiz or, they know. Hazard's saying we need better players to play with. Because he knows that we can't do anything currently with this squad. And, when you talk about the squad depth issues, this is where the boards come into play for me. And this is the situation that we're facing right now. But we need to end things now. And ending on the final question, basically. And I'll start with you, Younes. Do you want to see Sarri sacked, or do you think he should stay on till the end of the season?
it's a tough one.
It's a full-on one. I know
it's a tough one. Because I'm pretty much bang on centre in the middle. I'm hesitant to the fact that if we sack him, things are going to get better. I don't believe that's the case. You look at the other side as well, as the point that Joe made. Is it going to get better, considering the transfer ban? Considering, is Sarri going to change in terms of bringing in players like Hudson-Odoi, not trusting the players who are failing? Is he going to persist with them? These are all questions that we won't know until we actually see it. So that's why I'm on the fence. And that's why I can't say. I hate the fact that we keep sacking and hiring, and I so desperately want that to end. And that's why I believe the problem comes from upstairs. But I have those questions, as I've just pointed out. Is it going to get better? Are we going to see changes with the transfer ban? If we didn't have the transfer ban, I'd be more inclined to Sarri and just give him the players that he needs. With the transfer ban, it makes life a lot harder. I'm on the fence.
On the fence. Okay, fair enough. Lewis, do you want to see Sarri sacked? Do you think he deserves it? Or do you think that there's more life to the guy?
I don't want to see Sarri sacked. I think, like I said earlier, I don't think he was given a fair shot of it this season. I think the odds have been far and away against him from the start. I look at this Chelsea team, honestly, even in hindsight, I actually think it's astounding that we were unbeaten for as long as we were, and I think Sarri even deserves credit for that. Now, I understand Sarri has done things wrong. I understand that he is not faultless in how bad the season's been. I completely get that. But you look at all of the factors that have been around this club, I don't see how you can blame him. And people are going to say that, he hasn't won a trophy or nothing. People still need to understand that he had Napoli playing some of the best football in the world last season. And the only reason why he didn't win a trophy was because of how good Juventus were. If he was at Napoli for a good couple of years after that, he might have a trophy, but that's all putting things into perspective. I think Sarri hasn't been given a fair crack of it this season. I think you can't ask for him to leave after one season, because it's the third manager in a row that's said the players are to blame, have questioned the motivation of these players. So I think for once, I'd rather us do something different. I'd rather us go about this in a different way. Maybe if it's the same issues next season, maybe we can relook at things. But right now, it's way too early to sack him.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I think, from what I've seen this season, the thing I've just been noticing the most is that if we had better players in certain positions, we would have won a lot more games, because I think we've done quite a lot in games where we have produced shots on goal or moments of quality that should be winning us games. I mean, come on. Look at the context of football. Look at Man City, for example. Do you think every single week they're playing their best football? No. Why can't they do that? Because, they're playing against opposition teams that are trying to get results themselves. So, of course, naturally, there's going to be times where teams cancel each other out. But, I think maybe people will criticise Sarri a lot for those similar style of games. But I think overall throughout the season, from the football I've seen, I'm seeing us do things that we weren't able to do. The way we play out from the back is spectacular. I think it's really up there with some of the best teams in Europe. Listen, if we constantly conceded goals from players making sloppy passes at the back, then I'd be like, okay, Sarri ball can't work. We can't really do it. But we do it quite well. Look at Jorginho. I thought his game against Everton, I thought that was a
he was so much stronger on
exactly.
Sunday than he usually is.
I thought it was a testament to, the potential of what can happen if you persist with Sarri and just give him a squad more suited to this style of football. But of course, Joe, to end things with you, would you sack Sarri now or would you keep him?
I mean, I think I've got two slightly different answers. I think one, and being entirely pragmatic, is whether you think Sarri will win the Europa League or not.
I think
so. I think if you think if you think he wins the Europa League, then you don't sack him, because I don't think we're going to get top four, just sort of based on the form and the way we're playing domestically. But in Europe, I think the football and the style actually works a little bit better. So the question is do you win the Europa League? Because I think the main concern for the club will be the revenue from the Champions League money next season, regardless of whether we have a transfer ban or not. They clearly missed the increased revenue from the Champions League. Yeah. And the second question for me is more of the long term. Is he the long term solution? And I think when you're looking at this team and looking at what's needed for him to have a competent team, I'm not even talking about challenging for titles and challenging Barcelona, etc. I think you're looking at maybe a £500-600 million spend. You know, I saw today that Bayern Munich have apparently had a bid accepted of 80 million euros for Pepe.
Yeah.
You know, and if that's the level of money that you need to spend on a very good player these days, I mean,
let me ask you this,
maybe
Joe.
2 fullbacks, a defender, another midfielder, 3 forwards. I mean, it's an enormous amount of money.
I know what you mean, but let me ask you this though. Like, maybe as fans, we have to maybe like question like how we like see the club in that sense. Like, of course, what you're saying, you know, I do agree. We would have to spend 500 or 600 million, but we'd have to spend that type of money to go right to the top straight away. I don't think that we need to go through that process of trying to get instant success anymore. I feel like, and this is why I've been the biggest advocate for Sarri, because it's the long term. That's all I care about. The thing that's frustrated me the most as a Chelsea fan is, you know, the amount of so many inconsistencies seasons in between every single time. There's no consistency. Nothing's built from, nothing's improved upon. You know, everything kind of starts and stops, and I can't do that anymore. It's frustrating knowing that you're not really moving. You're just existing. You know, you're not improving or getting better. And I think for us to become that type of club, we are going to have to face a bit of hard times to get there. And I think that, yeah, if we can't get Sarri, you know, like 6 players, 7 players worth, like, you know, a total amount of like 500 million, I don't think that means the system can't work. Maybe we might have to persist with some players that maybe aren't as good, but they'll play better because they complement the system more than someone like an Alonso and Aspie. I think that's the direction, in my opinion, that we should go in, because I think it's just the long term we need to focus more, and then, you know, this fable thing of that, you know, we'll be a top club again one day, because with how the structure of the club is, it's not going to happen overnight.
But then you need a guy who can build a team.
But
you need a Jardim, or you need someone who's shown that they can knit together young players with experienced players. You need someone who has demonstrated that they can do that. Because the thing with Sarri, and this is, you know, this season, I've not seen anything to suggest that he can build a team. He can take disparate players and players of different abilities and different styles and make something that wins. I genuinely believe that if he adapted his tactics, that this team could quite comfortably finish top 4. I'm not saying that it's a fantastic set of players, but there are games this season where we've lost because we've completely gone full Sarri ball and tried to be this kind of version of Napoli. And been hammered. You know, Bournemouth, they had like 10% of the ball and they smashed us 4-0. Now I think there's a team here that if he was more pragmatic and was willing to kind of adjust and then sort of ease his way into how he wants to play football, it's just the fact that he's gone so far to the right already. I don't see there being a long-term vision with him here without the investment, because, you know, I love Reece James. I'd love him to come back this next season and be our right back, but I'm not holding my breath. You know, with Azpilicueta being the captain and having experience, we've seen how that plays out this season. So you have to factor in, is this guy going to be a team builder? Because that's what we need. I think I said it to you with a call on Alex the other day. Maybe he's the right manager at the wrong time. But we need someone to come in and build a squad of players. You know, get a core of some of these young players who can play that style of football. We've seen them play at under 18 level. They can play this passing style of football better than the first team. But get that core of players in the side who can play this style of football, and then maybe hand it over to someone like Sarri or someone who plays that style of football. Because you're basically asking to completely change not to say it's a negative defensive team. I don't believe Conte and Mourinho were that, you know, sort of that defensive in terms of how they set the team up. But they're kind of polar opposites in terms of style. You know, this massive hard transition, hard Brexit or whatever you want to call it, from left to right in terms of style. You know, it needed a softer transition for me, and I think that's been that's where I lose the faith in Sarri, is the softer transition from a team that really could defend and counter-attack as well as most teams in the league, to a team that now dominates the ball. But I think, as Lewis has mentioned, and Younes as well, we just don't score enough goals. We seem to kind of fall down when we get into the final third. So that long-term solution has to come with somebody who can build a team, because if that's not Sarri, you know, I personally don't think it is. And I think in the summer he kind of moves to Rome or whoever who maybe has more of a team that he can instantly kind of upgrade, because it's not worked for me this season.
Really? Yeah, I understand. But still, like I said, I agree with the points you're saying. But for me personally, I still think that we have to accept at least a year or two of a sacrifice. I think that even if Sarri wasn't the guy, and if it was Tuchel, can I imagine him doing more? Maybe he'd use a lot more young players, but let's say he's using them. are we necessarily going to get guaranteed Champions League football? Who knows? Again, there's so many hypotheticals to consider and think about. But I still personally think, from the football I've seen, I don't think that too many players are needed. I just think that we need someone that can get goals on the right. And I think that just fullbacks that have pace. I don't think that football's that complicated where, you can only 80 million talent can play for us, because that's not the case whatsoever. I think that, we've got solutions in the squad and the team. But all these things we have, it takes strong leadership. It's going to take a board that needs to be assertive. Do you want SARRI or not? What plans do you have for the future? How are we going to get there? That's one thing us fans don't really have the answers to or know. This is why we're having these type of discussions, to try and get an understanding of what could be the possibility. But Younes, man, I wanted to get your thoughts and opinions too. What do you think? Do you think that maybe SARRI should be taking a bit more responsibility for how the season's turned up? Or do you think that maybe as fans, we need to learn how to just be patient a bit? Good things come to those who wait.
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's a bit of both in terms of yes, we're seeing a new philosophy come in, we're seeing a new direction, and that's not going to come overnight. You're not going to get sweeping changes where we go and win the league by 10 points or something. That's not going to happen. At the same time, I think SARRI needs to be able to learn how to adapt, make tweaks, change little things that have to be changed instead of doing the same thing over and over again. And sometimes do reflect that and say that publicly, even if you have to sometimes, instead of, at first, for example, he would blame the mental state of the players and their mentalities, and I was in complete accordance with that. Totally cool. And every time we lose a game, he brings that up. Every single time.
But you know what I say to that, though? I mean, let's not forget he's Italian. English isn't his first language. He's not going to use the right adjectives to express himself. We've seen that Mourinho and Conte had their ad-libs that they'd always refer to. So I think fans can be we can analyse things a bit too much. But I do agree with what you're saying, though, with the sentiment of your point.
Yeah. So I think it's a bit of both. But we do, as fans, ultimately need to be able to learn how to not expect things overnight. That's not going to happen. Yeah. So when we do need to be patient, we have to be patient, especially in a league where it's changed. It's not like before where it was just Chelsea, United, maybe Arsenal. That's it. You got Man City, Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal, Liverpool, United. They're all there. They're all there. The league's gotten harder, and we've declined. So we do need to be a bit more patient than we have done.
Yeah, exactly. And Lewis, let me ask you. Obviously, in regards to Joe's question, do you think that SARRI could be the guy that you would trust? Obviously, develop a squad and build a squad.
I think it all depends on. You just have to wait and see. Like, I really want to judge SARRI after he's had a full pre-season, after he's had a full summer transfer window, and had at least the opportunity to bring in the players that he wants.
Yeah, I agree too. Again, I know I keep repeating the same point, but from all the games I've seen, and I feel like the memory of games really burns my head a lot because I got to watch them so many times. It's just execution. If better decisions were made in certain moments of the game, the complete context and outcome of the games are completely different. And I think that we're not far from achieving that. But the club needs to come out and tell us, are you in support of SARRI or not? And if you aren't, what's the plans for the future? Because I think that, whatever change we introduce is gonna have to be drastic. Because can we really be the same club forever? Let's say every decade we would maybe like a few trophies a decade, but then we have seasons where it's awful, the football's bad, and we don't do anything. I mean, let's not forget we're fans. We spend a lot of money watching the games. TV subscriptions, everything related to football as well. Why do you think everyone gets frustrated during these moments like this season? That's my personal take on things. Yeah, but sorry, I need to get better at monitoring everything. But honestly, you guys,
I was going to be done.
Yeah.
No, to be honest, you're spot on, and that's one point that I always want to make. Is that fans contribute, and when fans come out with frustration like they are now, you have to understand it from a certain point of view, because they invest. The club wouldn't exist if it wasn't for people putting in money for tickets, for shirts, for merchandise, for TV subs, for all sorts. So that does need to be respected, 100%.
100%, yeah.
Just as long as there's no abuse and there's no slagging off and all of that, all opinions should be respected for sure.
Yeah, but not every opinion, but I know what you mean. But anyway, you guys.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there we are.
Not if your name round to Tory. But anyway, you guys, that's going to bring it in for today's live stream. Thank you for watching it. Thank you guys for coming on as well. I'm Nini FC. This is Blue Line TV, signing out.